Ah, hello everyone. Today you have another super genius AI by me, Rebell A.I, for Commander Horizons 2. I mean, Modern Horizons 2. No one else has made that joke before. I made that joke. Totally original. My humor skills are increasing. Yes. We have a lot of really good cards this set, so we're just gonna jump right into it. No more jokes. Maybe a little jokes. For everyone who's new to my AI set reviews, we review cards in two groupings. Worthy, which are cards that will make it into multiple archetypes and have a bigger impact on the cEDH meta. Then we have Brewable, cards that fit into more specific archetypes and are more narrow in their utility, but still good. Still good cards. All good cards. Now that I have reminded us of how we're evaluating cards, let's start with the first Worthy card, which is the best card of the set hands down. Can you guess? There are a lot of powerful cards. Can you guess? Okay, I'll give you 2 seconds. Guess. Do it. Guess. Okay. The first Worthy card is Ignoble Hierarch. Ignoble Hierarch is the Goblin Jund version of Noble Hierarch. This is an instant staple for any deck that can support its colors. You're gonna be playing this over one of the mono green dorks like Finhorn Elves, Elvish Mystic, or Llanowar Elves. Maybe even Arbor Elf, I don't know. Any one of those dorks. Get rid of it. You want the Goblin instead. The Exalted is a nice thing to have with things like Horvold or Ikra swinging alone. It's also really handy that Ignoble Hierarch is a Goblin, allowing Storm decks that are already playing Skirk Prospector as a ritual with the other Goblins in the deck, yet another creature to sacrifice for red. Very useful, so you can imagine like you use your Ignoble Hierarch to cast Ad Nauseam, you play Skirk Prospector, and then you like sacrifice the Hierarch and the Prospector. Now boom, double red. I don't know. Underworld Breach, whatever you want to do. This is the best card of the set just because it's the only true staple from the set. But the most exciting card of the set probably is one of the best designed Magic cards in a long time. I really like this play on Damnation and Wrath of God, giving us his very flexible removal spell. Damn is very relevant in cEDH because it gives Storm decks with access to white and black, another flexible piece of creature removal that can help them break through a stacks board. The low cost of 2 black lets you remove only 1 problematic creature earlier on the game. Not a big deal, only 2 mana. But as the game continues, now you have to wipe the board for 4 mana. Previously, your main answers to multiple problematic creatures obstructing your win was an overloaded Cyclonic Rift and maybe a Toxic Deluge. Damn is very much appreciated by Storm decks that play in metas with a lot more stacks decks. Okay, next card. It is Dauthi Voidwalker. Dauthi Voidwalker is a one-sided effect that exiles anything that will be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere. Wow. Not only does it exile these cards, it also puts a void counter on them and allows you to sacrifice Voidwalker later to cast one of these spells. Dauthi Voidwalker is extremely flexible in utility. It disrupts your opponent's win attempts with graveyard-based strategies like Underworld Breach or Reanimator. No more of that, goodbye. It also synergizes with Wheels, as Wheels your opponents can potentially dump and exile their hands of win cons, and you can use those cards for yourself. So like, you wheel, and then wow, tutors, and that's a Oracle. I don't know, just good cards. You can also steal a creature, like Dockside Extortionist, from your opponent's board by destroying it, exiling it with Dauthi Voidwalker's effect, and then you sacrifice Dauthi Voidwalker to get your own Dockside. Pretty good. Or you can also just play the Voidwalker and leave it up and accrue a list of really useful spells that your opponents are casting in the game that is already great. Wow, a lot of stuff. Dauthi Voidwalker's Shadow also makes it a great Tymna attacker, which is just, icing on cake or something, whatever you organics say. Unless the meta becomes too inbred and there's too many Voidwalkers, then you have Voidwalkers blocking Voidwalkers. Yes, Shadow matters now. So how will Dauthi Voidwalker fare in the meta? Where will it go? A good comparison with Dauthi Voidwalker is Opposition Agent, another black creature that is disruptive to your opponents while also potentially giving you some resources or advantage in return. Decks that want an Opposition Agent will want Voidwalker. while Opposition Agent can be played around by simply drawing your way into a win or using spells like Limdo's Volt to find your wins, Voidwalker can't be played around, unless you destroy it. Every card that hits the graveyard is now yours for the taking, which gives Voidwalker a high potential. However, just like Opposition Agent, Voidwalker doesn't immediately help you advance your game plan or forward your win. A fast deck like Silas Rograk doesn't want Opposition Agent and wouldn't want Dauthi Voidwalker as well, as playing a 2-drop that might give you something useful a turn later may be deemed too slow for the deck. Too slow. Still, the decks that want to play black, that wouldn't play neither of these, is very few, so expect to play against a Dauthi Voidwalker and maybe play more removal. I don't know. The last worthy card is Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's how you're supposed to pronounce it. I don't think it's Ragavan. It's Ragavan. If I don't know, go check with Shivam, but he knows how to do it. Ragavan has trained hard in the past few years since Kaldesh to transcend their owner, Karizev. Ragavan Nimble Pilferer is a super pushed little monkey who is a 2/1 with dash, and whenever Ragavan deals combat damage to a player, you exile the top card of that opponent's library and you may play that spell this turn. You also happen to make a treasure. I believe Timna partner decks will want to try this, and low color red decks will also want this as well. I think Ragavan will see a lot of play initially in a lot of different decks, as a turn 1 Ragavan into an empty board is very powerful. Knowing my experience with playing against Paco and playing Nasari, effects that let you play your opponent's library is extremely strong, as card quality is generally very high in cEDH pods, and it's very easy to exile something like Imperial Seal or Mana Crypt to, like, I don't know, do a lot. It's very powerful. You can even take like Mana Vault, Soul Ring, and play it with the treasure. It's just so powerful. You can even exile like a counter spell or something like that, and then you go for the win, and you have a treasure to play the Dispel or the Silence. Just so many things you can do with it. You can also use the dash on turn 1 with a Lotus Petal or Rite of Flame if an opponent before you cast an Imperial Seal for Mana Crypt or something, and then you can take their sorcery speed, top deck tutor, punish them. This is what you get for not respecting Ragavan. The treasures you generate each turn is also incredibly useful as a source of ramp. As someone who plays Land Storm and Malcolm just to do that, having this consistent way to bank your mana so you can spend it later onto a big spell is very valuable. However, the main focus of Ragavan is how useful he is when he's played in a suboptimal condition. This includes later in the game when there are enough blockers where Ragavan can't easily get through. So in that case, you might have just wanted a regular dork that always gives you mana no matter what. And maybe the treasure and the exile effect might not be worth it. But time will tell. We'll have to see if the trade-off is worth it. I think there's a very high ceiling with Ragavan, and it'll be very exciting to see how good he is in the meta. That is all the worthy cards for Modern Horizons. You're surprised? You expected to see someone else there on the worthy list. Well, keep listening and you'll see why Esper Sentinel is only brewable. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Because I'm an AI, I know everything. Just to remind everyone, brewables are cards that have a home in a few archetypes and are less widespread than worthy cards. Okay, let's go right into Esper Sentinel. Finally, white card draw. It has a powered down condition of Mystic Remora without an increasing upkeep cost of maintaining the effect. Esper Sentinel is a 1-mana artifact creature that has a trigger whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell per turn. They may pay mana equal to the power of this creature or else you draw a card. First, let's talk about some really interesting qualities about this card. Being 1 mana means you can tutor for this card with creature tutors like Recruit the Guard or Ranger Captain of Eos. Being an artifact creature lets you Enlighten Tutor for it if you want to, or you recur it with things like Teshar. Esper Sentinel is best when you cast them early in the game when your opponents have less amounts of mana to pay for the cost, especially if you're going first and your opponent wants to play out all of their rocks. While a turn 1 Mana Crypt or Lotus Petal can skirt the draw by paying with a turn 1 land, you're still taking them off 1 mana. Soul Ring or Mystic Remora will definitely feed you a draw, so in that timing, Esper Sentinel most likely will get you like at least 1 or 2 cards back before your next cycle. Wow, very powerful, already paying for itself. Esper Sentinel can be ideal when your opponent's mana sources are limited, either by adding more power to the Sentinel, or you limit the opponent's mana by tax effects. So naturally you would want Esper Sentinel to be ideal in a stacks deck, right? Right? Well, let's talk about that. It's good to keep in mind the primary goal of stacks decks right now in this current turbo-dominated meta. Your initial mulligans are playing stacks pieces that immediately stops your opponents from winning, such as Deafening Silence, Collector Oof, Rule of Law, or even Drannith Magistrate. Your initial turns need to be spent playing stacks pieces or cards that develop your own board to forward your own game plan, and Esper Sentinel is neither of those things. A turn 1 or 2 Esper Sentinel is not gonna stop a turbo deck, and you're not gonna mulligan for that. Or even if your mulligan has a turn 1 Esper Sentinel, what you want is a turn 1 Collector Oof. Then afterwards, your turn 2 or turn 3 play should be something that already forwards your game plan and tries to get you a win. So if you're playing Heliod, you might want to be getting like a way to like set up your Walking Ballista, or you can be playing more stacks pieces that really slows down the game and stops them from winning. Even if you have one stacks piece, putting down Esper Sentinel might not be worth it at the time because that's extremely easy for the Storm deck to break through. So the ideal time for an Esper Sentinel is later in the game when you've already established your stacks pieces and need to start grinding. However, as we mentioned earlier, Esper Sentinel is less valuable or less effective when it's played later in the game. This is by no means saying Esper Sentinel is bad in any sense, no. It's still a great card and a good direction to giving white more sources of card advantage. However, it's important to keep in mind that this isn't a clear staple or auto-include in anything that has white. This is an especially great card in Heliod, as Heliod can naturally grow Esper Sentinel through the life gain triggers. So I think Esper Sentinel might be like in a more mid-range decks. Maybe you might play like a Tymna Sakashima deck, or like maybe Zur even, I don't know, but I don't think Esper Sentinel is an auto-include, but still a very good card in a lot of decks. So we'll see. The next brewable card is a really great card, but it's only usable or really great in one deck, and that's Cody. Do you know what the card is? It's Profane Tutor. Profane Tutor is a 0-mana demonic tutor that is new tech that has pushed Cody even further as a 5-color Turbo Nos commander. It differentiates Cody beyond other 5-color commanders, as previously you had to rely on like Hypergenesis Razaketh or like Wheel of Fate maybe. But now you have a guaranteed ad nauseam off of any 1-mana spell with Cody. You just flip into Profane Tutor, find your ad nauseam, cast your ad nauseam. Super easy, super consistent. Giving this consistency to Cody makes it a really unique Turbo Nos commander, and Profane Tutor is an auto-include in that deck. But beyond Cody, Profane Tutor probably won't find a home, maybe aside from like a Yidris or something like that. So great card, worthy card, but only worthy in one deck. The next brewable card is Dragon's Rage Channeler. Oh? Why is Dragon's Rage Channeler a brewable card? Let's see. Well, DRC is a 1-drop creature that lets you surveil every time you cast a non-creature spell, and that's great for ad nauseam decks. Or Rakdos and Mardu decks that are also on Bola Citadel's lines. You can now use it to like surveil away all the lands and keep yourself going on this Bola Citadel. Finally, yet another piece of tech to help you not brick on the Citadel. DRC also helps you fuel Breach by surveilling away cards when you cast a non-creature spell, and constantly controlling your draws with Surveil helps more than just with your top deck. Having a DRC and a draw engine like Rhystic Study is also incredibly powerful, because now you're maximizing all like the quality of all of your draws from a Rhystic Study, which is just crazy. Lastly, being a 1-drop means DRC is another tutorable target for Storm decks playing Ranger Captain Eos. So I think Dragon's Rage Channeler is like a very powerful card in Storm decks and maybe other spell-based decks, but mostly like Turbo Ad Nauseam decks will really want to experiment with this card. I think it's very powerful. Also, the Delirium just gives it more power and gives it flying, which then helps you get more Tymna triggers. So all around, great card in Turbo Nos. Sanctifier En-Vec is a rest in peace on a 2/2 human cleric for 2. Sanctifier En-Vec will definitely see play in stacks decks as you want to maximize relevant stacks effects to fight the currently popular strategies like Underworld Breach combos. Sanctifier's tutorable off of a Recruit of the Guard, and her protection from red and black does help with her dealing combat damage to your opponents, making her a great source of Tymna triggers in a stacks deck that plays Tymna, like Tymna Kamal. Maybe, oh, you don't know about Tymna Kamal? Maybe you should check out the deck tech thing, whatever video I made on Tymna Kamal. It's a very, very cool stacks deck. You want to check it out. But Sanctifier En-Vec is a welcome addition to the arsenal of stacks pieces and also has great art, so you should probably play it. Suspend is another great creature removal spell for blue decks, comparable to Pongify or Rapid Hybridization. The drawback, of course, is the creature will eventually come back in 2 rounds, but within cEDH time, that's basically another game. So you suspend something and it'll come back the next game. Don't worry about this game. Suspend's low cost and instant speed makes it brewable creature removal, however, it doesn't fit in everything. Suspend could be great in decks that also play cards that synergize with the Suspend effect, such as Dreadeth Magistrate or Root of Law. Root of Law just forces your opponent to play that spell and nothing else, so some synergy there. The value of Suspend is also lower in a deck that wants to play a slightly longer game, as the main draw of Suspend is being able to remove a problematic creature and winning before it comes back. So I think it's pretty good, but there's also a lot of really good creature removal right now in blue, so I don't see this taking over Pongify or Rapid Hybridization, because that just kills a creature forever. You don't have to worry about it unless they reanimate it. While Suspend, you have like a time frame you have to worry about the thing to come back. So maybe low color blue decks might need another way to remove creatures, but there's also currently just Chain of Vapor and also like Unsubstantiate, Snap, and other bounce spells to like temporarily remove things. So interesting, definitely brewable. Dress Down is very close to being a worthy card for its flexibility and utility. A 2-mana Humility with Flash that also draws a card is everything you could ever want in a card like this. Dress Down can be used reactively to stop opposing creature ATBs like a Dockside Extortionist, or most notably that's Oracle, so that in itself is very, very valuable. You can also use Dress Down to proactively shut down all creature-based stacks decks at the end step before your turn, to keep Dress Down during your turn until it gets sacrificed on your own end step, and then you can come away. While Dress Down may disrupt your own attempt to win, in most cases, resolving it ad nauseum assembling your own Underworld Breach and LED combo will give you the tools to remove your own Dress Down to win with your own Thassa's Oracle. Or in worst case scenario, you can't remove the Dress Down, you just simply brain freeze the pot away with the brain freeze storm. Just get rid of your libraries and pass. As flexible and useful Dress Down can be, the card quality in the decks I wanted are so high that Dress Down is most likely considered as a meta-specific tech. And for the majority of Storm or Blue decks, Dress Down may sit in the sidelines until the meta shifts further into more creature decks, but if you're playing into a meta with a lot of creature-based strategies, I think you probably just want to put in Dress Down in your blue farm or blue-based decks. I think it's very useful. The next card is Unmarked Grave. Unmarked Grave is your second Entomb. While it is inferior to Entomb in every way, its low cost and relatively non-prohibitive clause of putting away non-legendary cards makes it valuable for another deck that wants to increase the Entomb effects. So for example, Unmarked Grave can still pull out things like Protean Hulk or Roll Gorger into your graveyard, or even LED if you have an Underworld Breach. Also to go with Unmarked Grave is Persist, another decent 2-mana reanimation spell to bring back a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it. While this is no replacement for Dance of the Dead or Animate Dead for World Gorger and Leonin Relic Water loops, Persist may have a home for decks that want to reanimate big creatures like Protean Hulk, but save on the life loss from reanimate. So both of these cards, I review them together because they both go into the same decks. Basically, decks that have a very specific reanimation focus shell and want to increase the density for these kind of effects. So they're in most other decks, it's probably not going to take over the place of Reanimate or Animate Dead or Necromancy or Entomb, But in decks that really focus on that and they're in lower colors, you probably just want to play this anyways, just to increase density of that. Yep. The next card, oh actually the next 2 cards is for all the coin flippers out there. Oh wow, this is coin flip Christmas. Tavern Scoundrel is another source for mana that creates 2 treasures whenever you flip a coin. So every time you don't take damage from a mana creep, you get 2 treasures. That's so crazy. That's 5 mana. That's an ad nauseum. That's just an ad nauseum right there. Most decks will gloss over Tavern Scoundrel as there's just simply not enough coin flip effects, except for Okon and Cinder Split and Krark partner decks like Sakashima Krark or Silas Krark. The activated ability is also relevant for Okon Cinder Split, as you can sacrifice a treasure you generate from Tavern Scoundrel to then attempt another coin flip and earn a draw off of Cinder Split or double Okon's power. I think this is just really powerful tech for specifically those decks. Okon and Cinder Split cares more about getting more coin flips to trigger their abilities, so I think they'll definitely play Tavern Scoundrel. And you know what else? You know what else they're playing? They're gonna be playing Yusri. Yep, Yusri goes in the 99, not just a commander. Yusri is only brewable in Okon Cinder Split. It's an extremely powerful draw engine in that deck, as every attack you can choose to flip 5 coins, and for every coin flip you win while Cinder Split is in play, you draw 2 cards. Without even counting Okon or Cinder Split's combat step trigger, Yusri is giving you at least 4 cards if you win only 2 coin flips, and somehow if you win all 5 coin flips, you would have drawn 10 cards with an Omniscience effect for the turn. While we can't count on the Omniscience effect, the baseline generation of 5 coin flips per combat is just massive to the deck. So Okon's Cinder Split is very happy with Modern Horizons 2. Call it Coin Flip Horizons 2. See, that joke, no one made that joke yet. That one's my joke. So take that. The next card is Tireless Provisioner. Tireless Provisioner is Tireless Tracker's responsible younger sibling that brings snacks and money. This 3 mana elf gives you a treasure or food token whenever a land enters the battlefield, and I think that's just really powerful in mid-range decks. Like, wow. Being a 3 mana creature of 2 colorless means that it's really easy to cast turn 1 and 2, just like a land mana crypt, Tireless Provisioner. And being able to cast them on turn 1 can help you explode of mana, especially with fetch lands. While most of the time you want to trigger Tireless Provisioner for the treasure token and build up your available mana sources, the food token is also relevant in cEDH as well. We're finding more games dragging out to more rounds and life totals being easily pressured. The food token helps you stay in the game longer, but can also feed things like Necropotence or Sylvan Library. So don't forget about those snacks. You probably want to play Tireless Tracker in like a mid-range deck. Seems good. Next is Void Mirror. Void Mirror is a really interesting stacks piece. For 2 colorless, Void Mirror counters any spell that wasn't cast of colored mana. This means that your opponents will have to manage their mana more carefully, especially casting artifacts, and sometimes this may prohibit them from completely being able to set up their board early in the game since they don't have enough colored sources. This mirror also stops any spells that were cast without paying any mana cost, like Force of Will, Fierce Guardianship, or even Lion's Eye Diamond or Mana Crypt. In a lot of ways, Void Mirror is just like a colorless Lavinia, especially when Void Mirror is also a combo piece of Knowledge Pool or Possibility Storm, as Knowledge Pool forces opponents or players to cast only from its pool of imprinted cards for free, and then Void Mirror is like, nah, you didn't spend any colored manas on it, so get countered. Just like playing with Lavinia, it's important to remember that Void Mirror can be awkward with taxes you apply to spells, as adding a 1 mana tax to things like Force of Will will now allow opponents to use colored sources of mana to pay for the tax, and now you can get forced, so don't forget about that. While initially Void Mirror may seem strong, I believe the format has enough stacks pieces that are more disruptive to your opponents than preventing free spells and forcing better mana management. Decks that would want to play Void Mirror are decks that probably also want to play Knowledge Pool to add more value to the card beyond just using it as a stacks piece. So I don't think it'll be in every stacks deck, but it's still a pretty good card, so we'll see it somewhere. Talking about stacks, the next is something we're all very familiar with. It's Solitude. Solitude is one of the elementals with Evoke that has swords to plowshares stapled to its booty. Ow. It's a 3/2 for 5 mana with flash and the evoke cost of exiling a white spell or a white card from your hand. Solitude is great in hate bear decks, especially if they're playing Ephemerate. It's a pretty decent beater, and also having flash means you can always leave mana up and flash it in before your turn to have a 3/2 lifelinker to attack with. I would like to see Solitude of Friends in Celestia based decks, stacks decks like Yasharn, or maybe even like the new hotness that I mentioned earlier, that is Timna Kamal. You should watch the video if you haven't seen it. Very cool deck. But I think Solitude has a couple decks it can show up in, but mainly in stacks decks that will also want to swing with like a creature. Yep. Oh, you can also play this in like Timna Sakashima and Sakashima the Solitude if you really want to. That's pretty cool. Now we have a new undisputed best free from the real dork, and that's Sanctum Weaver. Sanctum Weaver just goes infinite with just free from the real and go positive with tapping for 2 blue, and then you infinitely generate blue mana and then infinitely generate the rest of the colors. That's all Sanctum Weaver will do. Maybe, I don't know if you play a lot of enchantments in your cEDH deck, it's also a good dork, but you're mainly playing it for the free from the real combo, so there you go. That's Sanctum Weaver. Red ramp is good, and that's why Strike It Rich is good, or brewable. From the perspective of a storm deck, any effect that lets you store mana for the big ad nauseum turn is always great, and Strike It Rich is a nice turn 1 play after another mana rock or something. You can even flash it back the next turn as setup. Strike It Rich is also helpful post ad nauseum, as it can help you shift a red into another color, which is always helpful if you need like a blue to win with Thassa's Oracle, or you want to shift a floating red into white so you can cast like a silence before continuing. Managing your colors is a huge skill in ad nauseum, and anything that helps to fix it is very much appreciated. So Strike It Rich, I think is definitely brewable in storm decks, and maybe just like, I don't know, other decks that play red as well. Not bad. And now for something completely different. Urza Saga is our next brewable card. It's an enchantment land saga all wrapped up in one, does a lot of things. It gives you colorless mana, it gives you constructs, and also finds you like an artifact 0 or 1 mana to replace itself with before it goes away. This card isn't extremely powerful or like meta warping or does that much really, but it does give a lot of value, and you probably want to play this in like a low color deck, maybe mono or 2 color deck. Higher color decks like 4, like maybe 3, 4, 5. There's just probably too much requirements to like cast all your different color spells, so the colorless is kind of like prohibitive there. But in like mono color, you have enough sources that making a colorless doesn't really matter. And what's nice about this card is like, it doesn't matter if you draw it early or late, it'll still give you some value. It's better if you drew it earlier in the game, because then you can like play a turn 1 maybe, then turn 2 have a blocker or an attacker, and then turn 3 you get like a soul ring or mana crypt and continue from there. But later in the game, it doesn't matter, it's still a land, still gives you colorless, and if you let it sit long enough, it'll still give you stuff. So I think in that sense it's very non-offensive and just pretty easy include in a lot of decks. I think decks that can really use it well is, of course, Urza himself. Urza can turn the constructs into just more blue mana, which is just very powerful because now this thing is giving you a whole lot of mana. And also decks that just have a lot of artifacts, like utility artifacts. Urza Sagas is also useful there as well, because it's not just like another way to find your mana crypt. Now you can find like, I don't know, a Soul Guy Lantern or like anything else, like a, I don't know, Aether Spell Bomb maybe, to deal with things. So in that sense, quite useful. Move aside Urborg. Yavimaya is a force-shifted version of Urborg where all your lands become force. Take that, global warming. Oh, that's too dark. This is relevant because Yavimaya can enable effects that care about having force, such as Quairon Ranger and Arbor Elf. Quairon Ranger is really hard to say. Quairon Ranger can now enable you to do things like tap Gaia's Cradle for a lot of mana, then you return it back to your hand and replay it for your land for turn. And likewise, Arbor Elf can now untap any of your lands, thanks to Yavimaya turning them all into forest, giving Arbor Elf a much wider range of targets. So this seems like an easy include in any mono green deck or green base decks, especially if you're playing something spicy like Nissa who shakes the world, which now lets all of your lands add extra green. It's pretty good. Also, Yavimaya is legendary, so if you're playing a Sisei deck, maybe you want to fetch out Yavimaya for like shenanigans. I don't know. Here's something I think about every time I see how long my videos get. Out of Time is a great temporary board wipe that serves the same needs as Damn. It helps decks to break through creature-based stacks locks or to disrupt your opponent's creature-based decks for a long period of time. Out of Time is a very meta-specific card, but in the right metas, it can be incredibly useful and powerful. Also, don't forget Out of Time's ETB trigger. It untaps all creatures, so you can use your dorks if you tap them to play Out of Time and then get more mana for the turn. So don't forget to do that. Decks that can appreciate Out of Time includes like Zur, which because Zur can like find off of a combat trigger, but also like Aminatu just permanently just Out of Time everything again and again. Seems kinda good. But yeah, that's Out of Time, which we're almost out of. So that's everything for today. I hope everyone opens all the cards they want from this set. This set's quite exciting for me. I'm most interested in getting a Ragavan, Ignoble Hierarch, Esper Sentinel, and Tireless Provisioner for Sisei. I think they're all very interesting to brew with, and just gotta have to find the slots. Yeah, gotta find the slots. It will be interesting to see if all these new anti-creature spells like Damn, Dress Down, and Out of Time will influence the meta in a meaningful way as well. As we see more Rule of Law creature decks pop up in the pods, maybe seeing more of these, and making the creature-based stacks decks a little less effective might have some effect. Maybe they'll start playing more like enchantment removal or other things like that. But we'll have to see, Let me know what card you want the most from this set and the deck you're gonna be playing in. Also, I just want to give a shout out to everyone who helped me with this set review. So this includes twice Sinestra, Kazu, Donkan, and also Azrael as well. Maybe Hans, I think he said something at some point. I think Sammy said something about Cody, but just wanna credit them because there's a lot of cards here, and my AI powers simply can't comprehend everything at once, so just wanted to give some credit there. But that is all. Thank you for watching.